Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing dodging and burning for beauty retouching on images. And I've done a couple of dodging and burning tutorials before for more fashion-based studio images, but I really wanted to do one that was geared more towards beauty photography because it is a little bit different when you're dodging and burning for those types of images. And usually you'll have to really get in quite close to the skin. So I thought I'd just do a fairly easy tutorial today on how to do this. I'm going to be skipping ahead in some of the parts because I don't want you guys sitting here for literally 3 hours watching me retouch, and that's probably going to be boring for everyone. So I'll just skip ahead any lengthy parts of the video where I'm doing kind of the same thing over and over. But first off, we're going to be creating our dodging and burning layers. So to do this, we go over to the adjustment layers and we click on this little box here. And then we go up to curves. This is just the way that I like to do dodging and burning because it's quite quick and it's easy to use. So for the first layer, we're going to bring this line quite high up to about there so the image is looking very bright and a little bit overexposed. And then we're going to invert this adjustment layer by holding down Control and I. So you can see that the layer mask has gone black and the brightness has been removed from the image. We're going to do the exact same thing again now with the curves adjustment layer. So we'll bring up a new one and then we're going to bring the line quite far down so the image is looking underexposed this time. And we're going to do the same thing again and hold down Control and I to invert that. Now I'm going to rename this layer here, Dodging, the first layer that we applied. And this one here is going to be renamed to Burning. I usually like to have my dodging layer at the top. This is just personal preference because I think I use it more than I do the burning layer. So we're just going to move that to the top and zoom into the image. So with dodging and burning on beauty images, it's really important to get quite close into the skin and see what needs to be removed and what doesn't. So I usually like to remove any sort of fine lines with dodging and burning and really work around the pores to help smooth out the skin texture a little bit. I don't like to remove all the texture from the skin because I think that's a really important part, to have texture in your images, particularly with beauty retouching. Otherwise, everything looks too doll-like and too smooth. So we're just going to zoom right into these areas down the bottom here because Elise has amazing skin. But we're going to really work on these areas just around her mouth here where the lighting is not as great. And we're going to make sure that this black box here, the layer mask, is selected. Then we're going to go over to the paintbrush tool over here. And we need to make sure that white is selected because we're painting onto the black. So in turn, what we're doing here is actually bringing that brightness in the layer that we created for the curves layer, and we're bringing that through onto the image now. I like to have a flow of 1%. This is just going to allow us to gradually increase the light on the photo. We don't want to make too many harsh adjustments. So I usually like to have a small brush. So at the moment I've got a 34 pixel size brush. And then we just start painting over these areas. So it's really as simple as that to do dodging and burning. It's more the fact that so much of it has to be done very carefully, and usually it's quite tedious because you're doing it for a long time. Depending on how the skin texture is in the image, you can spend hours and hours doing this at times. So at the moment, I'm just going over any little shadows that look like they're not meant to be there, or just to smooth out some of the parts of the skin texture and make sure that we're filling in some of those shadows. So I just like to do this in sections. I don't have any particular area that I like to start with on the image, but as long as you're sort of getting in close and making sure that there is enough detail in the image. So I'm literally going to repeat this over and over again on all parts of Elise's skin just wherever needs to be lightened up a little bit more. So the reason why I do dodging and burning like this as well, and not just by using the tools on the sidebar and straight onto the image, is because this is a non-destructive way of retouching skin in photographs. And you always want it to be non-destructive and not affecting the pixels of the photograph. This is also a good way to do it because it allows you to reel back a little bit if you feel like you've gone a bit overboard with the skin retouching as well, and you can change it at any time. So dodging and burning is a very detailed way of editing beauty images in particular. And I do prefer it over frequency separation for beauty images. I think it's good to use a combination of both at times, but I feel that dodging and burning is a lot more detailed, and it does allow you to get into every little part of the photograph and really perfect parts of the image. So once all the really small parts have been done, I like to make the brush size a little bit bigger this time. So probably for this image, maybe around 300 or so pixels. And then I like to sort of fill in the gaps because as you can see, there's sort of like a little bit of patchiness in some areas. So usually just by sort of running the brush over those parts of the image, it can help soften the patchiness. So I'm just going to go over the lighter parts and just kind of fill them in with the brush. Just do this really softly. Just kind of fill in those parts. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys what that's actually done. We're doing all the dodging on the image. So this is the before image, and that's the after. Now that's all done with using dodging and burning, and I haven't really used any other tools on this image yet. I would usually first off go in and remove any elements with the patch tool or a couple of the healing tools on a copy of the background layer, and I would usually go and remove those elements first off, but I haven't done that in this photograph purely because I wanted to show you guys how much dodging and burning can actually change the image just by doing that alone. So you can see just by going back to this first original image that a lot of the blemishes or parts of the skin texture that we didn't want have disappeared. So usually after this point, I like to make another adjustment layer, and this is if I'm feeling not lazy, which sometimes doesn't happen. But what I would usually do is I'd create another curves adjustment layer, and I'd make it quite bright again, so, you know, very overexposed looking, and then I'd invert it again. And then I would rename it highlights. And I usually only do this on beauty images because I feel like you don't have to pay as much attention to highlights on general fashion images, location shoots. But I think for beauty, it tends to be a pretty important part. So we can see in this image that there's quite a few areas that are highlighted, and we want to go over those areas and bring them out even more. So first off, I'm going to start with the eyes, or eye in this photo, because you can only see one of them. And I'm going to grab the brush again. I'm going to change the size to 55. We're going to start to paint over the eye because we want this to be the focal point of the image. So it's kind of important that this part does stand out. And then I'm going to go over some of these glossy highlights here. Just on the eyebrow and the eye. So anywhere that you see any highlights is a good place to start. So if we see the before and after on that layer, it's really brought out certain parts a lot more. So we'll just do a before and after again, and you can see how much that's changed. I'm going to move down further in the image now to this area, just above the lip, and start painting over this part. And over the lip gloss as well. And where else do we have some highlights? We've sort of got a few here on the cheeks, so I'm just going to run the brush over this area again. Make this kind of stand out even more. You can sort of be quite loose with how you're doing the dodging just over on this side. Just want to make it look like some highlights are picking up on the pores a little bit more. So if we just put that on and off, you can see how much of a difference that has made just in the highlights. Now I'm going to try out some burning because I haven't even used that layer yet. So we're going to just click on the burning layer and start going over the eyebrows a little bit more, just to give them a little bit more shape. This is where I usually use the burning tool on beauty images, usually over the eyebrows and parts of the eye as well. So I just want to perfect it a little bit more. But not too much. Especially if a model has quite untamed eyebrows, I never like to touch them too much. So we'll zoom out and see the difference that has made. So you can see that's really sort of tidied up the brow a little bit more. It's kind of made the highlights in there stand out a little bit more as well. I'm going to work a little bit more around the eye. I feel like the eye is just the most important part sometimes. I'm going to go to the dodging layer and start just filling in some of the shadows over here. Fill in some parts there and go over the highlight again actually. And this time we're going to go back to burning as well and just go over some of the lashes here just to make them a lot darker. Sometimes with burning I like to move the flow up a little bit more because it can be a little bit too soft with the effect that you need. Just extend that down there. You can also use the burn tool to go over any overly highlighted parts like I just did there. So let's just do a before and after of that. So you can see how much just the darkness around the lashes has made the eye stand out even more. So I think now I'm just going to do a final cleanup by using the dodging layer. Make sure the flow is back to 1. I'm going to create a background layer just to remove the final little elements here. So as I said before, I'd usually remove those elements first, but I did want to show you guys how effective dodging and burning can be just by itself. Just going over some of the other parts here. And then we are pretty much good to go. So guys, this is the finished result, and if we go back to the original image, you can see that's made a huge difference just by mainly dodging and burning throughout the entire image. So usually I would do my cleaning up first on a separate background layer, as I mentioned before, and then I would just make a few different layers here with burning, dodging, and highlights, because I usually like to bring out the highlights in any beauty images that I do, and I think it can really make a photo look a lot stronger and more effective by doing that. So I'm just going to show each separate layer. So that's the burning layer, dodging, and just a few of the highlights there to help them stand out. So guys, I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you learned something from it and it was helpful for your own work. If there's any requests that you'd like me to do, please let me know in the comments section below, because I'm always up for doing some more editing tutorials and filling in some more requests, so feel free to do that. And if you're interested in any of the gear that I've got, my photography gear, that is all listed in the description box below. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!